On the eve of New Year 2000, friends from all over New Zealand gathered in Whanganui at the Quaker settlement to build the last of the planned communal buildings on the site, an octagonal meeting room called the Quiet Room. On 20 acres at the edge of Whanganui City on Virginia Road lies a unique small village, a community called the Quaker Settlement, or affectionately known as Quaker Acres by its residents and others who know it well. This is the story of how this unique Quaker community came to be part of the Whanganui community, of its people and its purpose. In Whanganui there has been a continuous Quaker presence on the site of the Quaker Settlement since 1920, when the New Zealand Friends School, New Zealand's first co-educational boarding school for primary pupils, was built.
There was a Quaker school in Whanganui it started in 1920 and ran through 50 years until 1970. And when the school was sold, there was a farm of 16 acres which was not sold at the time, and the Quaker Yearly Meeting started to think about possible other uses for it. And there were a group of older Quakers who put up the idea that we could make a community of Quakers here and that we could run an educational program for all the Quakers in New Zealand. And that was really how the settlement started.
We think that by bringing such a group together, that by supporting each other, they will be able to contribute to society and to the Society of Friends more effectively and for a longer time than each individually. We hope that some younger friends will be able to join in.
The first buildings on the site were built in 1976. Unlike some other communities in New Zealand, this one was not founded around a charismatic leader, but by a group of people who had a commitment to living out their Quaker values and beliefs, working together with the support of the wider Quaker community. Today in 2007, there are 16 homes on the site, surrounding a central cluster of communal buildings, conference facilities and accommodation.
Quakerism began in England, in Cumbria, in the 1650s, and there were a whole range of groups in England at that time, I would say revolting really against the power of the established church. So that's really how Quakerism was one of those many groups, and I think one of the very few that survived. George Fox is the person who was credited, or we credit, with having the insight that there was something of God in every person, and he said that we should go around the world cheerfully looking for that of God in every person.
The official name of the Quaker religious movement is the Religious Society of Friends, and Quakers are also known as Friends. The name Quaker began as a term of abuse because some early Quakers were so moved by their newfound understanding that they shook with emotion when they spoke. The Friends soon adopted the name for themselves. There are currently around 1,000 Friends or Quakers living in New Zealand, which makes it one of the smaller religious denominations.
Well, my name's Anne Portucker and I live in Whanganui here. Originally we came from Aotearoa near Taihape, and I wanted to come here into the settlement. So my husband and I came and stayed for a couple of weeks here. And I was really impressed with the place. I liked it very much. And I could see why people had said what a lovely peaceful place it was, because of the environment, the houses. They seem to reflect Quaker values, you know, of simplicity and cooperation and equality. There's nothing fancy about them, but they're sort of stylistically all the same. It gives a feeling of harmony here.
The people who live at the settlement have a commitment to living a Quaker life.
It kind of spreads from one end is centred very much on Jesus, as would be the case with many denominations and most of the mainstream ones, and the importance of the Bible being paramount. And then it kind of moves right through, and at the other end, sometimes it's referred to as a universalist. I'd say at the other end it really just merges and more or less merges into Buddhism.
The settlement pioneers a different way of living and a different use of the land. Land and buildings on the settlement are jointly owned through a trust. Individuals or families purchase a license to occupy the home they live in. If they move on, they surrender their license and it is purchased by the next settler. It's more like stewardship than ownership. The attitude to the land is similar to Māori values. The people occupy rather than own the land, and land use looks toward the future as well as present needs. There are no fences or boundaries between houses and buildings. Neighbours agree together the use of the land around their homes.
Is that although the buildings are close together, if you look around you'll see that you don't actually look from one of these houses into another of the houses. So everybody has privacy even though we're close together. And between each of the houses we've made cute little gardens where we take care of flowers and plants and whatever and vegetables as well.
Around 30% of the site is taken up with the 16 houses and the communal and conference centre facilities. The rest of the land is used for a combination of farming with sheep, cattle and poultry, permaculture, woodlots, native trees and firewood plantings, organic vegetable gardens.
I'm Pete Green, and I came here in the end of 1977, so it's almost 30 years now. I came here with youthful enthusiasm, and I guess I'm no longer youthful, but I've still got some enthusiasm for the place. I've got a particular interest in the land, and I've run a few sheep and cattle on the land, and I've done that for a number of years. I also look after machinery and get involved in some of the physical tasks around the place, which I enjoy doing, especially when as a group doing it.
A unique collection of harakeke or flax.
This is the harakeke collection that we have at the settlement, and it was brought here about 5 years ago. So you can come to here and you can go to the flaxes. Every harakeke has a number and its name with it. We've been able to share them with some local marae and people who can use them. There's some varieties down at the museum now, and so that they can be shared.
Yeah, these flax will be taken into the prison, and some of the prisoners will do some weaving, making backpacks.
A special place for quiet contemplation is called the Garden of Peace. This area was originally a swampy pond in a paddock. The settlers have enhanced it and planted many trees. There is only limited vehicle access to the settlement, and all cars are garaged centrally so that vehicles are not seen from the houses or community buildings. Within the settlement, All movement is by foot, and this encourages contact between the settlers. The buildings of the settlement have all been designed by local Whanganui architect Michael Payne, who now lives at the settlement.
The group that was thinking about setting up a community came to me at a point where we lived 100 metres up the road, and asked me whether I would help get some physical shape to the ideas that they were talking about it. And so I've in fact worked on that for 30 years, and we finished just in 2003. It was the last house.
The site is laid out so that the 16 houses surround the central community and conference facilities, in the same way as a Māori papakainga or village keeps the community buildings warm by surrounding them. The meeting facilities which are available for hire by outside groups are a large dining and common room, library which seats 40, and a well-equipped kitchen. The quiet room with its large lobby seats 100.
In 2000 we built the quiet room, which was the last of the central buildings. It was on the plan that was done in 1974, so we waited a long time for it. But we had a meeting for construction, and we had 70 or 80 people come and camp on the site. And the main building, the main quiet room building, was actually put up in one day. We had a meeting for worship at 6 in the morning, and we worked very hard through till 9 o'clock at night. And at 9 o'clock we had another meeting for worship in a partially completed shell of a building. That was really a great thrill.
My name's Heather, and I'm the only person here that's actually lived here on 2 separate occasions, been away and come back. I first came quite early on in 79, when it was really pioneering stuff, establishing something, and I was here for 7 years. But I mainly came back for a sense of purpose, because I had retired and this place has a purpose and I wanted to be part of its purpose. And I'm very glad I came back. I love living here. It's a very peaceful environment, and the people are interesting. We have many different points of view, but somehow we managed to find a meeting place to live with all our various points of view and approaches.
Sleeping accommodation includes a sleeping house that sleeps up to 30 in a mix of cabin, bunkhouse and marae-style accommodation. There are also units with up to 5 twin bedrooms. Each unit has an ensuite bathroom. The houses are designed in a low-maintenance, undecorated style to reflect the Quaker testimony on simplicity. White plastered walls, black concrete tile roofs, and striking red gutters. Internally, rafter beams are exposed in a modular system. The houses are placed on the site running east to west to maximise sun, passive solar heating, and privacy. Concrete floor slabs enable easy access and passive storage of heat. Solar water heating is incorporated in some of the houses. Native plantings are used for visual and wind screening. Although we live on the settlement, many of us have close connections with the wider Whanganui community. Hi, I'm Keith Beautray, and I've lived at Friends Settlement with my wife Margie for the last 17 years. We've raised 3 children here, and they've now all left home, so we're both pretty fully involved with our jobs and activities here at the settlement. I work for the Department of Conservation, and in my spare time I'm involved in environmental things and activities here at the settlement.
I'm Margie, and I came to the Quaker settlement with my family when the children were little. It was a really wonderful place for children to grow up. They were playing outside for hours every day on the weekends, and You never get lonely here. There's always someone to talk to. There's always someone to go and see. There's always work going on. And there's always plenty to do. You don't get lonely, you don't get bored, and it's a great place to bring up your family.
At the settlement, we share all the work and make all the decisions about the community in a weekly management meeting. This is run in Quaker style, which means agreeing together and reaching a consensus on all decisions.
The most exciting time of the week, I guess, is the management meeting each Monday night, where we sit around in the circle for 2 hours and talk about what things that are going up, and there's always so many things on the agenda.
The main work of the settlement is organising and running a regular seminar program for Quakers and others. It is part of our purpose as an educational trust. Our conference facilities are also used by all kinds of groups. Any income goes back into running the facilities. Once a week we meet for a communal meal. We have coffee mornings, and working bees get important stuff done. But we also live our own private lives, and there is no community interference in family life or in what we choose to do at home.
Hello, I'm Barbara Jean Williams, and I'm from the Endless Mountains in northeastern Pennsylvania. And Sally Palmer and I have come here to be friends in residence for 3 months. One of the things that I treasure here that I also experienced in my life at Pendle Hill is the daily meeting for worship. I think that's a very important part of community life, and I've treasured having that opportunity here as well. The word I would use to describe the Quaker settlement is radiance. That you will see by the architecture of the buildings, the quiet room, there is so much light, and this is such an important part of Quaker faith and practice, is being guided by the light, the inner light. And
the settlement also provides a heart for the wider Quaker community in New Zealand. For me and many other New Zealand Quakers, this is our marae, our tūranga waiwai, or place to stand in Aotearoa. Some don't live here, but choose to keep coming back to maintain contact with their Quaker friends and the Quaker family in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Settlers can choose to meet daily for meeting for worship. This is the Quaker way of worship, and it's very simple. Friends gather in silence, and if anyone should feel led to speak, they do. Quakers call this giving ministry.